Back to the subject of reaction, because that is where Philippians 4 lives, and that is where most of us refuse to live. Be anxious for nothing. They frame it on the wall, stitch it on a pillow, print it on a mug, and in that moment the verse becomes a lullaby to soothe the nerves for a night, but not a command that transfigures the life. You see, we have turned a spiritual demand into a slogan, and a slogan cannot save you, nor will it guard you when the wind rises at 2 a.m. Hear it as it is written, not as it has been merchandised. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Phil, 4-6-7. Paul does not offer you a trick for feeling better. He does not ask you to repeat a line until your pulse obeys. He sets before you a principle. Do not react to the appearance. Enter into prayer that is consent, and then peace, that which is not of you, shall stand sentinel over heart and mind. Do you see that? The guarding is not achieved by your mental effort. The guarding is the work of God. But what have we done with it? We have made it positive thinking. We have made it mental repetition. A dear businessman in Chicago wrote the verse on his screensaver, and he told me it calmed him for a week until the market shouted. Then, as always, the old mechanism seized him by the throat, because a new sentence cannot outrun an old reaction. No man by taking thought can come into God, and no man by taking thought can manufacture peace. God isn't mind, God isn't power as men reckon power. Nobody knows what God is. But this we know, be still and know that I am God. Peace. So shall thou be sure. Stillness is not a better thought. Stillness is the refusal to enter the case humanly. Now, let us be very plain. Be anxious for nothing does not mean nothing looks threatening. It means when it looks threatening, do not give it your reaction. Never enter the case humanly. Never start to fix, manage, or argue with the appearance. Reaction is the life of anxiety. If you withhold the reaction, you starve the mechanism. If you starve the mechanism, peace can take its place at the gate. All right? This is not mood management. It is spiritual government. And so this text is not a balcony from which you shout affirmations over a battlefield. It is the quiet evacuation of your personal army. It is the surrender of your cleverness. Take no thought for your life, Matt. 625 is of one fabric with be anxious for nothing. The Master and the Apostle are saying the same thing. Do not enthrone appearances in your mind by fearing them or flattering them. Step off the stage and let the unseen do its own work. What then are we after here? Not a hack, not a 2-minute calm that collapses at the first phone call. We are after an inner reversal where the very trigger of fear is disarmed because we stop supplying it with our attention, our opinion, our demand that life look our way. We are after the middle path where we neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. And when that restraint, even for a breath, opens, there is the peace of God moving of itself beyond understanding, beyond technique, to stand guard. Not that you guard your heart, peace guards. Not that you keep your mind, peace keeps. Stay with me. We are going to take this out of the frame and off the mug and into practice. But first, let one thing settle. This verse is not asking you to think better. It is asking you to stop making offerings at the altar of reaction. Consent to God by refusing to wrestle. Let the peace, not your thought, do the guarding. Then you will understand why Paul's words are not soothing syrup, but marching orders into stillness. Now, let us face what you and I both know. The moment you step out of this room, or even before, the world will look threatening. The money looks thin. The diagnosis looks stern. The relationship looks as if it has lost its breath. The headlines beat on the nerves with their drum. You do not need me to tell you that. So what is this be anxious for nothing when the very air seems to carry a list of reasons for fear? It is not denial of the weather, it is denial of weather's authority. It is not pretending the letter from the bank has not arrived, it is refusing to bow to it as law. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. John 7:24. Do you see it? Paul and the Master walk in the same lane. Acknowledge that something is presenting itself to sense, and then refuse to let sense be your judge. What are these appearances in our work? Let us define them plainly so we stop wrestling with shadows. Appearances are the reports of the senses, sight, sound, touch, joined to the memories we keep resurrecting and the predictions we keep feeding, and all that amplified by collective fear until it looks like a fact with teeth. A test result plus last year's loss plus tomorrow's speculation plus a news cycle becomes an altar, and we, without noticing, begin to make offerings to it. Our attention, our speech, our sleeplessness. That, beloved, is anxiety. Anxiety is not merely a fluttering in the chest. Anxiety is a reaction. The inward bow you make to the appearance, the silent vote that says, you are power. And the degree of your faith is disclosed right there by the degree of your reaction. All right? If that is so, then be anxious for nothing is not a command to feel comfortable when the tiger roars. It is instruction to withhold your vote. It is training in spiritual suffrage. You may say to me, but Joel, this thing is real. The numbers are real. The body is in pain. I will say with you, yes, humanly, it is all very real. And we will not insult your intelligence by calling it otherwise. But we are not living by the human report alone, for we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Cor 5-7. Walking by faith is not walking with your eyes closed. It is walking without granting your eyes the throne. Never enter the case humanly. Never let the report, however loud, become your authority. Here is your litmus test, and it will not flatter us. When the phone rings and it is the school about the child, what rises? When the doctor clears his throat and turns the page, what rises? When the investor frowns, when the partner delays, when the friend withdraws, what rises? If you find yourself seized, planning and counter-planning in the mind, accusing and defending, you are in the reaction, and the reaction is the panic's breath. Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Matt 8:26. He did not scold the waves. He questioned the reaction. Faith in our practice is not a creed you sign. Faith is your lack of alarm. Do not make the mistake now of attempting to varnish the appearance with better thoughts. We are not in cosmetics, neither are we in heroics. We are in consent, and consent begins here. I refuse to give this appearance power. I will not love it, hate it, or fear it. I will not fit it with a halo or with horns. I will not take its side, nor the side that opposes it. If spiritual harmony can only be achieved through a separation, let us have it. If through a reconciliation, let us have it. Not even the side that hired you, do you hear, must claim your allegiance. Principle over personalities. Principle over pictures. Christ is the only identity. Now, someone will say, but if I don't react, won't the worst happen? No. The worst is fed by your reaction. It fattens on your scrutiny. Be still and know that I am God. Psalms 46-10. Is not permission to drift. It is a withdrawal of the fuel. When you do not rush into the case, when you let the clamor be the clamor and decline to crown it, you have made room for the peace that guards. That guarding is not sentimental. It is not a mood. It is government. And it begins the very instant you stop paying tithe to the appearance with your fear. So let us reframe the verse on the wall, not with calligraphy, but with practice. Be anxious for nothing does not mean never see a storm. It means refuse conscription when the storm recruits. See the clouds, hear the wind, read the letter, feel the ache humanly, yes, and then quietly, without dramatics, step into the middle path where you neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. That is the first act of faith. That is how Philippians 4 trains you when the world keeps shouting. You starve the shout by not answering it. You honor God by declining to enthrone what God did not send. And in that refusal, peace, which is not of you, finds the gate unguarded by your opinions and takes its rightful post. Now we come to the hidden command that very few of us care to hear when the nerves are shouting, never enter the case humanly. The instant anxiety rises, the mind bolts for the scene analysis, prognosis, blame, strategy, rehearsal. It enters the courtroom with exhibits and opinions. It summons witnesses from yesterday and forecasts from tomorrow. It begins to write speeches for phone calls that have not happened. It scrolls headlines searching for an omen. It refreshes the bank account to see if the digits will prophesy peace. Do you see that? This is the entering. This is the fuel line. And the first spiritual move is restraint. Do not argue with the appearance. Do not try to fix the appearance. Do not desire to change the appearance. Never enter the case humanly. Never give it your counsel. Never give it your defense or your prosecution. All such moves, however intelligent they appear, are the same movement. You are crowning the appearance with your attention and asking it to negotiate with you. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Acts 14:13. That is not passivity. That is a command to cut the fuel. Take no thought for your life, Matt. 6:25 is not negligence. It is a refusal to enthrone thought as your savior. All right, let us be very practical. Doom scrolling is entering the case. Checking symptoms into the night is entering the case. Refreshing the trading app, the inbox, the bank balance, entering the case. Rereading the last text and composing 14 replies in your head, entering the case. Calling 3 friends to rehearse what you will say to the boss, entering the case. Googling the diagnosis and traveling in 5 minutes from a twinge to a funeral, entering the case. And with each entrance, your anxiety asks for another chair at the table, and you give it and then wonder why the room is crowded. To be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Rom 8-6. Carnal mind is not wickedness. It is the reflex to treat appearances as cause and to treat thinking as power. Spiritual mind is not sentiment. It is the refusal to wrestle, and in that refusal, peace appears as government. Now, someone will protest, but surely I must do something. Yes, but not yet and not humanly. Action that grows out of panic remains within the system of fear and control. It sows to the flesh and reaps the flesh back, gal. Human advice fails at this gate because it keeps you on the wheel of cause and effect. Soothe the symptom, measure the risk, request reassurance, secure a promise, set a watch, and then, when the wind shifts, do it all again. That is why the comfort lasts an hour, perhaps a day, and then collapses at the next ping. Reassurance is a sugar that asks for more sugar. Peace is bread that needs no flavoring because it descends from another order. So your discipline begins where the world calls you irresponsible. Restrain. Do not answer the text in your mind. Do not search the symptom. Do not consult the charts. Do not seek an ally. Withdraw. Not to brood, but to unhook. Sit down if you can. Stand still if you cannot sit. And let the mind's horse buck without mounting it. Whisper if you must, Father, I do not enter this case, and then keep silent. Not the silence that listens for an outcome, the silence that consents to God. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30 to 15. Confidence here is not bravado. It is the quiet certainty that there is only one government, and it is not yours. This is fasting in our practice. This kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting, Matt. 17:21. Fasting from what? From opinions, from outcomes, from digital altars, from the itch to correct the picture? Prayer from what? From words that attempt to persuade God to move things around, into consent that God is God. Refuse entrance. Fast from mental noise. Pray by becoming quiet. Then, when movement is required, a call to make, a boundary to set, a doctor to see. It will not be the child of fear, but the child of peace, and it will carry its own authority. Do you see, then, the genius of Paul's order? Be anxious for nothing, restrain the reaction, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, yield the case. Let your requests be made known unto God, consent, do not control, and the peace of God shall God fill. 4 to 6, 7. The guarding begins at the gate of your restraint. The very moment you decline to enter, you have stepped off the battlefield and into the sanctuary where peace, not your engineering, takes its post. Hold that line today. Refuse recruitment. Let appearances pass like weather across the sky of your being, and do not fly with them. In that holy abstention, you will discover that the case you refuse to enter has lost its jurisdiction over you. Now we must let Paul shock us with his grammar. Listen again, not with the ear that has grown accustomed to the cadence, but with the ear that hears command. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Phil 4 to 7. Not you shall guard them. Not if you repeat a line long enough, you shall settle them. Peace shall guard. Do you see that overlooked verb? That one word moves the burden from your little workshop of mental carpentry to God's own government. What have we been doing? We have built a subtle ego project and baptized it as spirituality. We try to manage anxiety by managing thoughts, arranging outcomes, forcing calm. We stand at the gate like a nervous sentry, turning keys, peering through the peephole, rehearsing counters to intruders. And for a moment, perhaps there is quiet until the next noise, and then we are back at the gate with a tighter jaw. That is still reaction. That is still you entering the case humanly, only now with religious words on your lips. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Ps. 127 to 1. The verse is not asking you to be a better watchman. It is telling you the watchman is not you. What is this guarding, then? Do not reduce it to a mood. God is a military word, an active function. Peace, the very activity of God, takes its post at the threshold of thought and feeling. Peace stands between suggestion and assent. Peace intercepts the flying arrow before it lodges in imagination. Peace refuses entrance to the masquerade of threat without your having to argue with the mask. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. 6:14:14. All right? This is not apathy. This is inner government. Where you have been trying to police your mind with slogans, peace becomes the law under which the mind serves. Now, I know the temptation. You will say, if I stop managing, chaos will enter. No, chaos enters by your managing, because managing is your confession that appearances are cause and thought is power. God isn't mind, and God is not a power to be wielded against other powers. Nobody knows what God is, but we know this. When you withdraw the reaction, when you do not enter the case, and you do not attempt to manufacture serenity, there can come, sometimes as a breath, sometimes as a still weight, the presence that Jesus named. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. John 14:27. Not as the world giveth, because the world's peace is a trade, a bargain with conditions. God's peace is governance that needs no bargain. So the twist must be plain enough to arrest us. The aim is not to achieve peace. The aim is to yield until peace takes over the guarding. You will not hold off fear by gritting. You will not out-argue dread by quoting. You will restrain the first impulse, never enter the case humanly, and you will sit in that inward poverty that says, Father, into thy hands. And in that consent, without fanfare, the watchman takes the wall. Your part is abstention. God's part is garrison. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Isaiah 26:3. Stayed is not strain. Stayed is rested attention, the quiet gaze that refuses to wander after the appearance. This is why we do not measure our progress by how calm we can make ourselves on command. Calm that you manufacture is still a card trick. It collapses the moment a stronger wind rises. But peace that guards is outcome-free and hour-free. It does not wait for the lab result to change, or the relative to apologize, or the market to correct. It is an authority that enters the room before the phone rings and remains when the story continues. Let that be our practice now. Withdraw from the gate. Refuse the ego's post. Let peace, not your managing, stand watch. And you will find, without knowing how, that what once seized you meets a closed door, and there is a guard on the other side who answers no knock. All right, if peace is the guard, and if it is not your business to stand watch by mental effort, what then is your movement? In everything by prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known unto God, Phil. 4-6. Now, do not drag into this line the old trade you learned in religion. Pleading for outcomes, bargaining with promises, instructing God in methods. God is not mind, and God is not a power to be wielded against other powers. Nobody knows what God is. Therefore, prayer cannot be an attempt to move God into action, to push spirit over matter as if spirit were your larger crowbar. Do you see? If you approach prayer as a tool to fix the picture, you have already proclaimed the picture as power and your thought as mechanic. That is reaction in holy clothes. What then does it mean? Let your requests be made known. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Matt 6-8. So the asking is not information for God. It is exposure for you. You bring the fear into the light without building a case for it. You do not rehearse the angles, the dates, the forecasts. You do not present exhibits to elicit a verdict. You come into quiet and say, if you must say it all, Father, here is the fear as it whispers in me, I am not its servant, into thy hand. That is all. No embroidery, no strategy, no advice to the Almighty. Cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. 1 Pet 5-7. Casting is not coaching. It is letting go the rope. And supplication, do not make that a groan. Supplication is not the drama of desperation. It is the humility that ceases to demand personal control. It is the kneeling of the will. Not my will, but thine be done. Luke 22:42. In supplication, you resign your chancellorship. You let the government shift from anxiety's cabinet to the Christ within. The government shall be upon his shoulder. Isa 9-6. All right? That means in practice, you stop measuring prayer by whether you feel better in 5 minutes. You stop weighing your words against the thermometer of emotion. Let God have its perfect work. Let patience have her perfect work. Jas 1-4. Prayer is obedience, not opiate. It is consent to governance, not a sedative administered to the nerves. Here is the method, simple and exacting. First, never enter the case humanly. Withdraw the impulse to fix, to argue, to research. Sit down or pause standing and become still enough to know, be still and know that I am God. Peace. 46:10. If words rise, let them be few and yielded. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth. Matt 6:10. Then consent wait without watching outcomes, without listening for news, without peeking at the gate. There must come, if only for a breath, that split second of silence in which the mind is not consulting its charts. In that consent, peace finds jurisdiction. If thought returns to the picture, notice it and quietly return to consent. We are not muscling the mind. We are abdicating its throne. Do not pray for one side to win. Do not pray that the investor says yes, that the scan reads clear, that the prodigal returns on Tuesday. You are not in personalities, you are in principle. Christ is the only identity. If spiritual harmony can only be achieved through separation, let us have it. If through reconciliation, let us have it. Not even the side that hired you may claim your allegiance. Your interest is in bringing forth a spiritual activity, not in crowning an appearance. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, Matt. Leuden Sanchez Senfen. Seeking first is not seeking things by way of God. It is seeking God without a shopping list. Now, when you have thus let your request be known by exposure without manipulation, by supplication without demand, leave it, and return to your day under another government. Do not check the pulse of the prayer. Do not ask 3 friends if they feel anything. Do not look to see if the clouds have changed color. Prayer in this teaching is not the lever by which you lift a circumstance. It is the surrender by which divine government replaces anxiety's government. And when government changes, the God appears. And the peace of God shall guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. With thanksgiving, which we shall take up next, the loop of anxious self-rule is cut. For now be content to have resigned, and let the watchman take the wall. Now Paul adds a word that offends panic precisely because it severs its logic with thanksgiving. Why there? Right at the edge where the breath shortens and the mind reaches for its toolkit, because thanksgiving cuts the hypnosis of lack and threat. When fear says there isn't enough time, enough strength, enough money, enough mercy, thanksgiving answers without debate, not by arguing figures or probabilities, but by recognizing a presence and a source prior to all figures and probabilities. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. Peace. 100-4. Thanksgiving is the gate because it refuses to worship the appearance. It returns the heart to the fact of God before there were any appearances to evaluate. Do not cheapen this with a mood. Thanksgiving is not whistling in the dark. It is not a grin nailed to the face to persuade the nerves. In everything give thanks. 1 Thess does not mean pretend the thing is lovely. It means acknowledge that God is present in the midst of it, that the government has not shifted to chaos because a report arrived. You see? Gratitude that catalogs blessings to outweigh threats is still arithmetic, and arithmetic belongs to anxiety's temple. Spiritual thanksgiving is recognition. You are here. You govern. You are the peace itself. This is why I will counsel you, in the very moment the pulse climbs, to turn within and say, not as a bargain, not as a charm, thank you that you are here. Thank you that your government is present. Thank you that there is only one life, one law, one love. Thank you that your peace itself is the God at this gate. Not thank you for fixing this, because you have already been taught not to enter the case humanly. Not thank you that she says yes, that the numbers rise, that the scan reverses. That is still instruction to God. It is still paying tithes to the appearance by naming the outcome you require. Thanksgiving in spirit is the end of the transaction. It is consent, reverent, and exact. You are. Watch what happens in identity when you do this. A moment ago, you were the beleaguered one, the manager of outcomes, the sentry with sleepless eyes. In true thanksgiving, you discover, if only as a whisper, I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Gal 2:20. The sense of a separate self struggling to survive yields to the awareness that Christ is the only identity, that life is sustained from within and not from the outer machine. Your life is hid with Christ in God, Code 3:2-3. All right? In that recognition, anxiety cannot find its host. It knocks, but there is no household of fear to receive it, because the household is already occupied by presence. You will say, but the circumstances have not changed. Perhaps not, and yet the loop is cut. Anxiety feeds upon the confession of absence. No time, no help, no wisdom, no God. Thanksgiving withdraws that confession. It does not deny the report, it denies the report's authority. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, Priest 23-5. The enemies may still be in the room, humanly speaking. The table is spread regardless. Thanksgiving eats at that table without interviewing the enemies. And in that simple act of eating, of receiving presence, the drama begins to lose jurisdiction. Do not wait to feel grateful. Begin in obedience. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, Ps 50-23. Offer it not as sugar for the mouth, but as truth for the soul. Offer it and then be still. Let the phrases be stepping stones into silence. Thank you that you are. Thank you that you govern. Thank you that your peace is here. Then drop even the thanks when the click of quiet comes, because the highest thanksgiving is silence before the all. Be still and know that I am God, Ps 46-10. In that knowing, the watchman does not need your commentary. One more word of caution, because the mind loves to counterfeit. Do not employ thanksgiving to manipulate outcomes or to secure a feeling. If you measure its success by what happens in the next hour, you have sold it back to anxiety. Let thanksgiving be your inner turn from personality to principle, from the picture to presence. Let it escort you out of the case and into the sanctuary. There, even as the world keeps up its weather, you will find that peace, not your vigilance, has taken the wall, and your heart and your mind are under another government than fear. Now, if peace is to God, there is another unveiling we must accept, because without it you will keep feeding the very thing you hope to dismiss. Much of what you call your anxiety is not yours at all. It is not your private defect, not your genetic doom, not your special temperament. It is a universal belief, a contagion in the mental air that claims law without having law. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, F 6:12. You see? We are not fighting a personal foe. We are declining a collective suggestion. On the whole, humanity has been tutored for centuries to bow before threat, to worship prediction, to enthrone control. That communal hypnosis speaks in the first person so that you will own it. I am in danger. I must hold all the strings. I am unsafe unless I know the body rules me, money governs me, the world is my master. But those are not identities. They are sentences borrowed from the world's liturgy of fear. Let us name them clearly so they lose their drama. Something will go wrong. I must control everything or it will fall apart. I am unsafe unless I know the outcome. The body tells me what is possible. Money is my life's weather. The world's consent is my breath. These are not your thoughts. These are broadcasts on the human band, like static that seems to fill the room only because the receiver is on, and yet they have no law. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Esau 54-17. Weapons formed in belief still lack law in spirit. Infection and contagion have no law to support them, whether of body or of fear. There is only one power. You see the curve? The moment you take it personally, my panic, my chemistry, my story, you have handed the belief a birth certificate and a jurisdiction it never possessed. Now the practice. When the surge rises, do not accuse yourself. Do not say, I failed again. Do not analyze your childhood or sign another treaty with willpower. Never enter the case humanly. Stand still and separate the claim from identity. Say within yourself quietly, without theatrics, this has nothing to do with me as a selfhood apart from God. This is a universal belief presenting itself for my assent. I do not assent. Right now, I nullify any seeming effect from a universal belief. There is only one. Neither fear, love, nor hate this appearance. Let it pass as weather. Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. Matt 14:27. The I is not your personal bravado. It is the presence that becomes evident when you refuse to put your name on the envelope of fear. All right, a simple case for you to see. Two people receive the same news at 9 a.m. The contract has fallen through. The figures are identical, the calendars match, the dependence upon that contract is equal. One collapses into the spiral. Why me? What will they think? How do I fix it? Who can I blame? They enter the case a dozen times before lunch. The other sits a moment, lets the first shock run its course without mounting it, and says inwardly, Father, I do not enter this case. This is not personal. This is the world's belief in law seeking a host into thy hand. Then silence, perhaps only a breath, and the guard takes the wall. Nothing in the headline changed at 9:05, yet one heart is seized and the other is steady. The difference is not circumstance. The difference is reaction. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, Isaiah 26:3. Stayed, not seized. This is how you starve the universal belief. Depersonalize it and withdraw your tithe of attention. When the old chorus begins, you must know now, control it or die. The body decides answer once and then be still. Christ is the only identity. I am not a private mind under private laws. The government is upon his shoulder. Perfect love casteth out fear. 1 John 4:18. Not the emotion you call love, but the recognition of presence that leaves fear with nowhere to sit. Then drop even the statements when the click of silence comes, because nobody by taking thought can contact God in that silence. The belief that needed your name to stand loses its footing. It is seen as a masked parade without authority. Remember this measure today. When anxiety is seen as impersonal belief rather than personal identity, it loses its law and you stop feeding it. That is not indifference. That is fidelity to principle over personalities. Even the personality you have been taught to answer to as me. Refuse the draft. Never enter the case humanly. Let peace, not your analysis, guard, and you will watch without spectacle as the universal wind keeps blowing, and yet your house does not shake because it is no longer built upon the consent of fear. Now we come to the training ground itself, the narrow way that is not dramatic and so is often missed, the middle path, not panic and not numbness, not obsession and not repression, simply non-reaction. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Do you see? Fear and hatred are obvious chains, but love of an appearance, attachment to an outcome, worship of a reputation Clutching at a bodily state binds you just as surely, because what you love as an idol you must defend, and what you defend you fear to lose. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, Matt 6:21. If your treasure is an appearance, your heart becomes its hostage. We have to say this with the severity of love. You fear what you worship. You panic over what you cling to. If your peace is mortgaged to a person's approval, each look becomes a weather report. If your safety is measured by a number in a lab or a balance in a bank, those digits become your gods, and the priests of anxiety officiate daily. Little children, keep yourselves from idols. 1 John 5:21. Idols are not statues in a distant land. They are the conditions you believe must bow before you can rest. When you love an appearance, when you hate an appearance, when you fear an appearance, you have assigned it authority over you. You have said, in effect, "Thou art my law." That is why the command cuts so close. Neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Now I hear the protest. Are we to be indifferent to our children, to our health, to our work? No. We are to be free in them and faithful in them without bondage to them. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, Matt 10:37. That is not a demand for cruelty. It is a disclosure of order. If you are not willing to leave mother, brother, sister, father for my sake, if you are not willing to release human dependencies where they claim to govern, then every dear face becomes a lever by which fear can move you. Christ is the only identity. Principle over personalities. Love your people, serve your vocation, care for the body as a steward, but refuse them the throne. Let there be inwardly a readiness to stand without any one of them as your source. Then you can be truly present, because you are not bargaining for breath. This is our practice, simple and exacting. When the appearance rises an email with sharp words, a scan with unwelcome numbers, a rumor about your name, pause. Do not enter the case humanly. Notice the first impulse: to fear, to adore, to despise. That is the hook. Decline it. Say within yourself quietly, this appearance is not my authority. I will not fear it, love it, or hate it. I let God govern what it claims to be. Then be still. Let the words be a bridge into silence, not a wall of defense. Wait for the click of quiet, and in that quiet, the guard takes the wall. Be of good cheer, it is I. Be not afraid. Matt 14:27. The I that speaks is not your private will. It is the presence that appears when idols fall. All right? Put it to work today. The market rises, do not love it. The market falls, do not fear it. Your name is praised, do not worship it. Your name is maligned, do not hate it. A symptom abates, do not crown the body as benefactor. A symptom returns, do not enthrone the body as ruler. We are on the middle path when we neither fear, love, nor hate any appearance. Under that governance, action will still be taken, but it will not be the child of clutching. It will be the child of peace, and it will carry its own quiet authority. This is how anxiety loses its grip, by starvation. It cannot live without your worship, without your enmity, without your romance with outcomes. Withdraw these, and the idol grows small. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, X 20:3. No other gods includes not only terrors but also trophies. Let Christ be the only identity, the only law, the only life. Then the phone may ring and ring. The figures may dance or droop. The faces may smile or frown, and you will be steady, not because you have mastered psychology, but because you have ceased to bow. In that non-reaction, the appearances stop being idols, and peace not your vigilance guards your heart and your mind. Now comes the decisive turn. And it offends the clever mind because it cannot be engineered. Nobody, by taking thought, can contact God. You may quote, you may affirm, you may arrange your sentences with diamond precision, and yet mental repetition, however pious, cannot produce the guarding peace. God isn't mind, and God is not a power to be wielded against other powers. Nobody knows what God is. Therefore, be still and know that I am God. Ps 46-10 is not poetry. It is instruction. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet and shut the door. Matt 6-6. Shut the door, you see, not upon people alone, but upon your own commentary, your inner journalist who keeps filing updates about danger and demand. Only then does the knowing replace the thinking. What then is the point of entry? There must come, however fleeting at first, a split second of silence. Not your crafted quiet, the kind you produce by pushing thoughts into the next room, but an inward cessation, a stop so honest you are not even checking if you have stopped. After the fire, a still small voice, 1 Kings 19:12, not a voice that argues with storms, not a sensation that excites the nerves, but a presence you recognize by its authority. The mind falls into order without effort. The heart ceases to audition outcomes. Time loosens its grip. That is the click. It may be a breath long, no more, but it is enough. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, Isaiah 30-15. Strength is not produced. It is revealed where commentary ceases. All right, we must have a simple sequence, because in the heat of an appearance you need rails for your feet. First, notice reaction. Catch the body leaping, the thought hurrying to build a case. Second, stop entering the case. Do not pick up the phone in your head. Do not prepare briefs for your inner court. Third, soften the demand for outcome. Say quietly, not my will, but thine be done. Luke 22:42. Let the grip relax. We are leaving personalities for principle. Fourth, become still physically if you can, inwardly regardless. Let the breath find you. Let the shoulders sink from the ears. Fifth, wait for the click, not with a stopwatch, not with a test. Wait as a servant waits at the door, available, uninsistent, reverent. If words rise, let them be few and surrendered. Thank you that you are here. Then if even those become heavy, drop them, fasting now. This kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting, Matt 17:21. Fasting from mental noise, from outcome watching, from the temptation to peek at the gate. You will protest, but my silence is so brief. Brief is enough. Do not measure God by your clock. The guarding peace does not arrive as fireworks. It appears as government. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. 14:14. Hold it, then do not play with it, do not test it, do not parade it. Peace will not dance to your tune. It will assume the watch. Expect steadiness, not thrill. Order, not theatrics. You may even find yourself disappointed at first because you mistook adrenaline for assurance. Good, let that disillusionment come. The thrill you craved was still your rule. The authority you receive is God. Put it to work in little ways now, so you will trust it in larger. The phone flashes a name that has troubled you. Notice the rise. Stop entering the case. Let the outcome go. Become still. Wait for the click. Then answer, not as a manager, but as one under government. The doctor's portal posts a result. Notice the surge. Refuse the case. Release the script you wrote last night in bed. Be still. Wait for the click. Read if you must, but read under the guard. At 2 m, when thought gathers its tribunals, sit up, feet on the floor if you need, and move through the sequence slowly. Even if the click is only a sigh that is not yours, that is sufficient. Go back to bed and do not look for omens in your dreams. Do not grow superstitious about the click. It is not a talisman, it is God contact, and nobody by taking thought can produce it. We present ourselves, we lay down our arms, we stop hiring the mind as our security guard, then, without fanfare, peace enters as jurisdiction. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Isaiah 26:3. Stayed, you remember, is not strain. It is rested attention. Return to it 10 times a day if need be. Better 10 honest seconds of silence than 10 hours of rehearsed words. The click will become more frequent not because you have mastered a technique, but because you have ceased to bow to appearances and their timelines. Let this be your covenant today. I will not think my way to God. I will not use truth as a hammer. I will notice reaction, withdraw from the case, loosen my demand, become still, and wait. In that waiting, the watchman takes the wall, and you will discover, sometimes to your surprise, that storms continue, calls still come, reports still print, and yet something else has entered the room first, an inward order that does not ask permission of weather. That is peace guarding. And that, my friends, is the whole direction of our practice. Now, some of you are honest enough to say, I follow the sequence, I withdraw, I wait, and then at 2 a.m., the floor drops out of me again. The body shakes, the mind races, I check the locks and the lab results in the calendar, and reassurance evaporates like steam. All right, do not hide from that. There are kinds of anxiety, recurring panic, trauma, grooves, compulsive checking that laugh at ordinary reassurance, and even at ordinary prayer, because ordinary prayer still talks to the picture, still tries to escort the appearance to the exit. This is what the Master named when he said, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting, Matt 17:21. Not drama, fasting, not more words, prayer that surrenders. Deep work, you see. What is fasting in our practice? Not merely abstaining from food. Fasting is withdrawing from the mental pantry that keeps anxiety fed, the news cycle that pumps predictions into your veins, the arguments you rehearse with people who aren't in the room, the self-diagnoses that make you your own prophet of doom, the little snacks of checking, peeking, testing, measuring how you feel every 20 minutes. That is feeding the very thing you say you want to starve. Prayer and fasting, as we use it, is the stripping away of these feedings until there is no more fuel for the fire, and the mind, left without its candies, has to sit and find that God is here without props. So let it be said plainly, if the surge keeps returning, deepen the consecration. Speak less about truth, abide more in silence until truth reveals itself. Do not make a ceremony of quotations. There must come a willingness to fast from the tools you treasure most, your monitoring, your outcome watching, your private calendars for God. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. 14. Stand still means stop looking to see if the wind has changed direction. Fasting from outcomes is holy refusal, refusing to test God, refusing to make peace contingent upon news, refusing to glance at the gate to calculate if the God has arrived. We are not managers auditioning the Almighty. We are servants who have laid down our clipboards. The case, so you have a handhold. A student, long faithful, writes, at night it grips me. I pray, I repeat, and yet I end in the glow of the phone, refreshing the feed, rereading the diagnosis, timing my heart. I answered, withdraw 3 days from feeding it. No medical reading, no research, no discussions about the case with anyone, including yourself. No checking the feeling like a barometer. No, how am I doing at the top of every hour? Fast. In the morning and in the evening, sit 10 minutes, no more, no less. Say very little. Father, I do not enter this case humanly. Not my will, but thine. Thank you that you are. Then wait for the click or for no click and rise and refuse to measure. Noon, repeat 5 minutes if needed, but not as a fix, only as obedience. If fear swells, do not grab for tools. Fast again. Neither fear, love, nor hate this appearance. I will not feed it. Then let the silence stand in your room like a pillar, whether you feel haloed or hollow. That is prayer and fasting. You will be tempted to peek. You will want to see if the body got the memo, if the banker called, if the critic quieted. That is where you are to fast from outcomes. No peeking, no secret test to see if God worked. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30-15. Confidence is not confirmed by hourly polls. It is born of government. If you cannot endure 12 hours without checking, you are not in bondage to a diagnosis. You are in bondage to your addiction to solving. Let us fast then from solving. Now, do not mistake this for severity without love. This is compassion without sentiment. If you are not willing to leave mother, brother, sister, father, for my sake, if you are not willing to leave your pet assessments, your emotional crutches, your sacred right to monitor, then those very loyalties will drag you into the case 100 times a day. Sometimes a separation is very spiritual. Let's have it. Separate from the shrines where you have been worshiping anxiety disguised as responsibility. There will come a night, perhaps the second, perhaps the ninth, when there is no experience, only waiting. Hold your post without theatrics. Nobody, by taking thought, can contact God. Forget even the truth you ever knew and wait the split second for God to announce God. If no announcement comes, hold your peace. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Acts 14:14. That is the deep work. And then one dawn, not as thrill, but as quiet jurisdiction, you will find that the same winds blow, and yet the windows no longer rattle. Not because you mastered a technique, but because, having fasted from mental noise and outcome watching, you return to the deeper silence where peace, not your managing, is the God. All right, let us bring this down from the prayer chair to the sidewalk. Because Philippians 4 is not a wall text for kitchens, it is a government for Tuesdays. 3 scenes, each common, each loaded with temptation to enter the case humanly. The method is 1, refuse personalities, recognize universal belief, wait for the click, let peace govern the next right step. First, the call or the email that bites a client, threatens suit. A supervisor demands an impossible fix by noon. A lender reminds you that money, they say, is God. The surge rises, the mouth dries, the inner courtroom opens. Stop. Never enter the case humanly. Neither fear, love, nor hate this appearance. Do not make a villain of the sender. Do not make a hero of your defense. Say within, Father, I am not dealing with persons and powers. I am dealing with an appearance and a universal belief in pressure and lack. There is only one presence governing. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what ye shall answer. Luke 21:14. Be still. Wait for the click, one breath of unhooked attention. Then, under that guard, take your step. You may return the call. You may write 3 sentences that are truthful, non-accusatory, exact. You may ask for terms or offer a clean boundary, ethical action without anxiety, not to win, not to punish, not even to rescue, to be faithful to principle. If extension is granted, good. If not, we still refuse to enthrone personality. The government shall be upon his shoulder, Isa 9-6. Not even the side that hires you gets your allegiance. Let peace govern your next right step. Second, the portal pings, results posted. The body, the lab, the long Latin names. The universal belief in deterioration stands at the door and shouts, "Stop! Never enter the case humanly." Before eyes touch numbers, say quietly, "Thank you that you are here. I am not under two powers. There is only one. This report is an appearance in time. My life is hid with Christ in God." Then the click or not, but you hold your peace. Read, if you must, under the guard. Seek counsel, take treatment, get a second opinion if led. But do not make a god of the report or of your plan. Be careful for nothing. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Phil. 4-6-7. You see? Peace is the guard while you do the next sensible thing. You can change diet, keep appointments, rest the body, and never once worship the body as law. Infection and contagion have no law to support them. Fear has no statute in spirit. Let peace govern the step, leave outcomes to God. Third, the message that pierces, "We need to talk," or "I'm done," or a colleague's accusation that paints you as the madman in the tale. The urge is instant. Defend, explain, prosecute, stop, never enter the case humanly. Do not take sides, not even yours. Principle over personalities. Say within, Christ is the only identity here. I am not dealing with him or her. I am dealing with an appearance and a universal belief in separation and blame. There is only one presence governing. Wait for the click. Then speak, if you speak, from under the guard. Perhaps your next step is an amends without bargaining. Perhaps it is a boundary without rancor. Perhaps it is silence for a day. A soft answer turneth away wrath, Prov. 15-1. Not softness as strategy, but as fruit of non-reaction. And if spiritual harmony can only be achieved through separation for a season, let's have it. We are not here to win arguments. We are here to let God govern where fear once did. This is how Philippians 4 walks the street. We stop fighting people and outcomes. We refuse to hire the mind as our lawyer. We let peace take the wall, and then we make the next right call, send the next clean email, keep the next honest appointment. You see that? In each scene, the same transfer occurs, from personality to principle, from noise to the click, from managing to being governed. And the winds still blow, the phones still ring, the portals still ping, yet your heart and your mind are under guard, not by your vigilance, but by the peace of God. Now let us protect the tender sapling we have planted from the cold wind of impatience, because this is where many, having tasted a click or two of silence, walk outside in the morning, feel a gust of feeling, and declare, "It didn't work. I tried it and I still felt anxious." All right, let us speak plainly. Do not judge your demonstration day by day. He that believeth shall not make haste. Isaiah 28-16. You see, what you are tempted to measure is sensation, and sensation is the last to bow. The Spirit plants first the principle, then, almost unnoticed, the habit of non-reaction begins to root, and only after that do the branches of steady feeling appear. First the blade, then the ear. After that, the full corn in the ear. Mark 4:28. If you pluck at the blade and demand corn by noon, you will accuse the field of failure when what is lacking is your patience. Let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. James 1-4. Patience is not waiting for weather to change, Patience is refusal to make weather your God. Divine timing is not God being late. It is God refusing to let you crown sensation as sovereign. We do not turn to God for anything, not outcomes, not moods, and yet everything comes under government when we stop hiring the mind to make hourly reports on how we feel. Do you see? The first proof is not sparkle. It is the slow, stubborn increase of non-reaction. Yesterday you spiraled for 3 hours. Today you noticed, stopped entering the case, whispered a thank you, and the spiral broke in 19 minutes. That is not failure, that is fruit. Yesterday you checked the portal 5 times before breakfast. Today you caught the hand at the second reach and waited for the click. That is not denial, that is governance taking form. Think of Saul of Tarsus. The flash on the road made headlines, yes. But Scripture hints at years of hidden sorting Arabia, silence, unlearning before the apostle moved in steady authority, Gal 1:17-18. 9 years, some say, let maturity bring to light. If the Master himself increased in wisdom and stature, Luke 2:52, do you imagine your nervous system will surrender its idols in a week? Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not, Gal 6-9. Due season is not your calendar. Due season is the ripeness of non-reaction, maturing until peace no longer visits, it abides and guards. So measure differently. Do not ask, do I feel perfect calm yet? Ask, did I enter the case less quickly? Did I separate the universal belief from identity sooner? Did I remember Thanksgiving before I reached for control? Did I wait even for one breath for the click? If the answer to any one of these is yes, rejoice not as a mood trick, but as recognition of presence. With thanksgiving, remember that is the knife that cuts the loop. Give thanks not that the storm is over, but that the guard is on the wall while the storm spends itself. And when you fail, when you find yourself 3 pages deep into the old script before you wake, refuse condemnation. Condemnation is just another appearance clamoring to be loved or hated. Stop. Never enter the case humanly, even when the case is your supposed failure. Return to the method, non-reaction, prayer, thanksgiving, silence, again and again, without scolding the child. The Father knows what things ye have need of before ye ask him, Matt 6-8. And the chief thing you need is not data, it is government. Government is learned in repetitions of obedience, not in one grand swoon of serenity. All right, let us covenant together. We will not look at our demonstration day by day. We will not make a thermometer of the heart and consult it every hour. We will let maturity bring to light. We will trust the quiet arithmetic of grace. 1 less reaction here, 1 quicker return there, 2 fewer compulsions by Friday, and we will keep to the middle path without haste. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Hab 2-3. Not your rush, not your clock, God's order. And in that order, peace, which is not achieved but appointed, shall keep, shall guard your heart and your mind through Christ Jesus, until the day comes when you realize, with a kind of quiet surprise, that storms still pass over the house, but the windows have stopped rattling, and you did nothing heroic, only refused to bow and waited for the watchman to take his post. All right? Let us say the secret plain and leave no fog behind us. Philippians 4-6-7 is not asking you to engineer brighter thoughts or to put a ribbon on a storm. It gives you a ladder, and each rung is a relinquishment. First, the appearance comes and tempts reaction. Second, you refuse to enter the case humanly, no sides, no inner court, no outcome auditions. Third, prayer not as leverage, but as consent. Not my will, but thine. Fourth, thanksgiving, not mood management, but recognition. Presence is here before the news arrives. Fifth, silence the click where commentary ceases and God contact replaces self-rescue. And then, not your success, not your technique, but the peace of God which passeth all understanding shall guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Do you see that? Peace is not your trophy. It is your sentinel. It is the watchman on the wall when you have stopped pacing the ramparts. This is the twist you must carry like a seal on your hand. Philippians 4 does not demand mental control. It offers divine guarding when you yield the inner battleground. You do not subdue storms by singing over them. You stop giving storms your throne. You do not sharpen your will. You surrender your jurisdiction. God isn't mind. God is not a power you wield against another power. Nobody knows what God is, and nobody by taking thought can contact God. But the God knows his post, and when you lay down arms, he assumes it. Now, take a daily rule so simple you cannot excuse yourself from it. Morning. Before talk, before headlines, sit 5 minutes and shut the doormat. 6 to 6. Say little. Father, I do not enter this day humanly. Thank you that you are. Wait for the click or for nothing at all and rise under government. Midday. A brief check. Have I reacted? If so, stop, withdraw, whisper, neither fear, love, nor hate this appearance. One breath of surrender. Evening, thanksgiving, not inventory of outcomes, but recognition of presence. Thank you that through calls and reports and faces, you kept God where I forgot. And any time the flare comes, email, portal, rumor, immediate retreat to stillness, do not diagnose your peace. Do not test God. Do not hire the mind as lawyer. Refuse the case, consent, give thanks, become still, wait the split second. This is not ritual. It is government in practice. Carry this charge with a steady hand. Do not fear, love, or hate any appearance. Refuse to be bribed by praise or bullied by blame. Principle over personalities. Christ is the only identity. If reconciliation appears, take it. If separation is what spiritual order requires for a season, let's have it without rancor, without triumph. Your interest is not to win. Your interest is to be governed. He that believeth shall not make haste, Isaiah 28 to 16. Move, yes, but move from under the guard. And now, as you go, remember the secret verse, revealed not as novelty, but as order. You are not to achieve peace. You are to stop reacting until peace takes up the watch. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Phil. 4 to 6, 7. That is the whole of it. Not your clock, not your mood. The watchman is faithful. Let him stand the wall. Let him stand it today over the phone, the report, the money, the face in the doorway. And if the wind rises in the night, do not bolt upright to count it. Touch the ladder, refuse, consent, give thanks, become still and sleep under guard.